Ladies and gentlemen, we just hit 3K, and you know what that means? It's time for a tier list. Today, we're going to be doing the Radiohead discography, ladies and gentlemen. The first thing I did music related on this channel was go through the Radiohead discography front to back, appreciating my favorite band of all time, sharing my thoughts on these albums that I knew like the back of my hand besides Pablo Honey, which was a first listen, and getting new fresh experiences out of them, even having heard some of them upwards of like 20-30 times like OK Computer. We're coming up on 2 years since I did this. It was the 21st of August 2023 that I posted my Pablo Honey reaction, and as of when I'm filming this, it's the 11th of August 2025. And to think that I have been doing this for 2 years is crazy to me. So much so that I decided I was actually going to delay the video until today, which is 2 years of human reviews, which is, again, insane that I've been going this long, insane that I've come this far in just a short period of time as I have. I know, again, 3K subs isn't like the craziest numbers, but still, thank you to everyone who has been here for the 2 years. You know, here's to many more years of me talking about music to come. It feels like it was just a few months ago that I sat down and I said, fuck it, let's just do this thing that I've wanted to do for ages. And I don't know, it's just kind of been an insane ride since then. I mean, the channel has obviously taken off a decent bit. I'm obviously not like the fucking face of music content or anything like that. 3K subs isn't the biggest numbers, but still, the fact that 3,000 people would want to sit down and talk about music with me means so ridiculously much to me. Seriously, whether you're someone who discovered me from like the old days of the channel, like early music stuff, before the music stuff when this was a gaming channel, or more recently from when the channel has been kind of going insane in terms of numbers recently, I seriously appreciate every single person who watches the videos, who shares their support for the videos, and everyone who even joins the live streams and talks about music live with me. It means an insane amount to me, and I thought the best way to appreciate the fact that I have hit 3K would be to talk about my favorite band one last time 2 years later. Here's how this is going to work. We are going to be doing the 9 studio albums today. None of the EPs, no bonus stuff, none of the basement sessions or in Rainbow's Disc 2. We're just going to be doing the 9 main beasts today. Going to be going in chronological order, tiering them S through D, because I don't think there's any F tier Radiohead albums, to be honest. And yeah, with that being said, let's just get started. Pablo Honey is the definition of humble beginnings. This album is the weakest in the band's discography by a decent bit for me. This is essentially the band in their rawest state, not really being fully used to the music creation process yet, and you can really feel it. Lots of very generic, standard 90s alt-rock tracks that don't really feel like they have any sense of personality or distinct style. You're hearing a lot of stuff from popular 90s grunge acts, you're hearing a lot of stuff from 60s and 70s classic rock bands as well. Anywhere from Nirvana to Jim Morrison to the Pixies serve as the inspiration for this album without any sense of distinct personality or style, which we would get just one album later on the Bends. Now, this album does absolutely have its highlights. I think that despite the memes, I think Creep is a genuinely great alt-rock track. Blowout is an absolutely gorgeous closer and serves as one of the most memorable and striking moments in the band's early career. Even the opener You is a solid introduction to the band on the whole, but these tracks are placed in between so many boring and forgettable cuts. It's not a terrible album by any means, but it's absolutely the weakest, and in comparison to the rest of the Radiohead discography, it lands itself in the D tier. You do it to yourself, you do. That's why Radiohead. Moving on to the band's 1995 release, The Bends, this is a huge step up. This album essentially sees the band continuing with the very 90s sound, you know, lots of alt-rock, lots of grungy cuts, even throwing in a lot of Britpop in here as well. Except this time you actually start to get the Radiohead flavor. From the opening moments of Planet Telex, this album proves itself as something so wildly different to Pablo Honey, something so atmospheric, something so dark and moody and gritty. Even just down to the production, everything here feels so much more professional. These songs are so spacey, they are so vast in their scope. So many dense, packed layers of super thick bass, luscious guitar tones, and Tom York's vocals on this album are fucking spotless. The only real issues I have with this album is that there are a couple of moments, namely Sulk, that are kind of in that Pablo Honey, kind of flavorless 90s alt-rockism territory, but those moments are so few and far between that it really doesn't bring the album down all that much for me. The Bends lands itself firmly in the A tier for me. Absolutely incredible shit. OK Computer is an album I'm so passionate about that I wrote a 4,000 word review of it on Album of the Year. It's my pinned review. Go read it. This is my favorite album of all time, which is such a generic thing to say. I know, OK Computer, best album of all time, but genuinely, there is no album that has struck me to my core quite like this project. Every single moment on this album is emotional devastation, be it the frustration put across on tracks like Karma Police and Paranoid Android, be it the heartbreak and longing provided on No Surprises and Letdown, or just the feeling of alienation and isolation on a song like Subterranean Homesick Alien or The Tourist. Thom Yorke really is able to portray such a deeply saddened character here and put you in his perspective in such powerful ways. The way they use the concept about this guy struggling to keep up with society and the ever-changing world around him and kind of expressing his frustration as a lens to explore all of these deep emotions is fucking genius. Genuinely one of the best concepts on any album. I don't know why people don't talk about this aspect more. Such immersive and vivid storytelling. Thom Yorke is really able to drop you in this world and make you sit in it, and he explores it so well. It's this futuristic dystopian nightmare that you can't help but get lost in every time you listen. Not to mention, this album holds some of the band's most forward-thinking instrumental ideas as well, with the genius use of guitar effects and synths, both of which combining to create sounds that are so otherworldly and alien, really setting a strong and distinct tone that no other album has been able to match. I don't have a fucking complaint about this thing. Every single song is perfect. There's not a single moment of this album that I ever skip. There's not a single moment of this album that I ever don't want to listen to. And honestly, when I say this is my favorite album of all time, I don't care if people talk shit. I don't care if people say it's a generic take. It really is that powerful to me. It's the easiest fucking S tier on the planet. What did you expect, man? This fucking OK Computer. It's my favorite album of all time. Alright, now we're on to the legendary Kid A, the greatest left turn in music history. Is it really that? Probably not. But seriously, this album coming after OK Computer is kind of insane. It sees Radiohead going from this psychedelic alt-rock band into a full-on electronic art piece band. From the opening descending piano line on Everything in Its Right Place, this album sets itself apart as something different. It is such a cold, icy, calculated environment to sit in. Every single moment of this album feels like this ice age sweeping over the planet as it slowly freezes over more and more and more. All being told through the perspective of this robot that gains sentience and kind of learns to gain human emotion in the middle of the apocalypse. Such a devastating concept on this thing that, again, people don't talk about enough. Whether you're talking about the very slick, jazzy national anthem or the very icy and static idiotech, this album provides such a range of sounds and textures, despite it being so frozen aesthetically, and I mean that in the best way possible. It's able to go from a big loud rock album on Optimistic straight into this liminal nightmarescape on In Limbo, and both of these tones match each other so well because the story is that fucking engaging. It's also an album that's surprisingly able to find a lot of beauty in its apocalyptic nature, like on Tree Fingers, where it's this very smooth, serene ambient piece, or on Motion Picture Soundtrack with those beautiful harps. I just really appreciate their ability to capture moments of simplicity, moments of calmness in the middle of this apocalyptic landscape that they create on this project. This album easily lands itself in the S tier, blah blah blah, you already knew that shit was coming. Let's move on. Amnesiac, aka Kid B. This album is honestly a little overrated by some people and a little underrated by others. Most people seem to fall into two camps where they're either like, this is the best fucking album ever, or this is like one of the worst Radiohead albums, and I think this album lands itself perfectly as being good. Plenty of fantastic mind-bending cuts on here, like Knives Out, Dollars and Cents, Life in a Glass House, whilst also having songs like Hunting Bears and like Spinning Plates and Pulp Pool Revolving Doors that are genuinely some of the most questionable moments in the band's entire catalogue. Like, why do we need another version of Morning Bell that is so much more straightforward and way less atmospheric and cold? People also really like to bring up the fact that this was recorded during the Kid A sessions, but honestly, most of this album doesn't really feel like Kid A. A lot of this project is way more intimate. It's way smaller in scale as well. This really feels like a project full of creative little ideas that the band had that they kind of threw together. Some of them worked, some of them didn't, and they just wanted to have like a project of these leftover cuts that they just kind of threw out there. Despite being darker and more intimate in its atmosphere, Amnesiac isn't really able to live up to the greats. It lands itself in the B tier. Hail to the Thief, the band's political opus. This album is really fucking solid. A lot of people tend to forget about this one. This sees Radiohead go in full political, conspiracy theorist, denouncing Bush, everything 2000s politics is present on this album. From the opener, 2 + 2 = 5, with those big chants of all hail to the thief, all hail to the thief, over and over again in the back half. This album sets itself as something that is very real, very grounded, and very angry. It's an album that's very scattershot pacing-wise and tonally. It's the longest Radiohead album, coming in at 56 minutes, and you really feel it. Lots of these songs kind of feel a little bit like filler to pad the runtime, particularly something like Sit Down, Stand Up, or The Gloaming. And certain songs even end up feeling unfinished, like I Will, and that is because this album was recorded in 2 weeks. Now, I have to say, I really respect that. Some of the band's best material lands on this album. Again, the aforementioned 2 + 2 = 5, There is one of my favorite songs they've ever made, full stop, as well as other genuinely great and memorable cuts like Sail to the Moon, Go to Sleep, and A Wolf at the Door. But when you also get cuts like We Suck Young Blood, the worst song in the band's main album discography in my opinion, it makes for a little bit of an unbalanced listen that I don't really see myself coming back to in full a lot. The positives do very far outweigh the negatives, and I will say this album is definitely a very enjoyable listen and a must-hear in terms of the band's discography. I just wish it was a little more focused in its political narrative. I wish it was a little tighter, a little less scattershot, and maybe it could have landed itself up, honestly, in the S tier, because the highlights on this album are some of the best highlights in the band's discography. But as of right now, it lands itself in the B tier. Coming off of Hail to the Thief, people didn't know if Radiohead were even going to continue. Their 6th album contract with EMI was up, the band had expressed not enjoying working on music together, and a 3-year hiatus really made it seem like they were not going to reconvene. But they did. And not only did they reconvene, they came back together with what might be their most intimate and emotionally punchy album for me, full stop. This is an album that is all about love, loss, grief, and regret. This sees Thom Yorke digging out the deepest, darkest pits of his soul and throwing them up onto the page. Every single track here, besides 15 Step, which is actually pretty upbeat, is fucking devastating. Even the album's brightest moments instrumentally, like Body Snatchers, have such deep personal messages about feeling like an imposter, feeling like you don't belong in the space you're in. Or even Jigsaw Falling Into Place, one of the hardest rockin' songs on this album, is about realizing after all this time that this person you've been after doesn't love you and doesn't even remember you exist. The story they tell to convey these feelings on this album about this guy who is deeply in love with this person who doesn't love him back as he ruins his life trying to get with her is absolutely fucking crushing, dude. You see this guy fall deeper and deeper in love with this person as she only grows further and further distant, sweeping him under the table, as he says in House of Cards. And by the time you finish Videotape, you are just left with this feeling of true emptiness, this feeling of wasted time, this feeling of disappointment. It is just so real, it's so tangible. Everything here is so stripped down in scale to its barest points, and you really get to see Tom York show his entire heart here. I also have to say this album holds my favorite song of all time with Weird Fishes. That song literally makes me cry basically every time I listen to it. It is such a beautiful but also very, very, very deep cutting track that has been my favorite for years now and has still not been overtaken. Yeah, this is a flawless fucking album, dude, front to back. This is probably Radiohead's most perfect project. There's not a single second of this album that isn't 10 out of 10 territory for me. In Rainbows lands itself handily in the S tier, easiest S tier I could possibly give out. Following another 4-year break, Radiohead would return with their follow-up, The King of Limbs. This album was meant to be them going back to that Kid A sound, very electronic, experimental, very dark, but this time working with a lot more loops and samples, trying to create something more static and skeletal. And they definitely do that at points. Lotus Flower, one of the best songs in the band's discography. Codex, a absolutely gut-wrenching ballad, and also Bloom, a fantastic opener. Then you have songs like Morning Mr. Magpie, Feral, or Give Up the Ghost that are just so bleh. I've got nothing to say about them, dude. They are such boring tracks. Radiohead, surprisingly, for the first time in their career, provide nothing to say on some of these songs. Uninteresting loops, non-existent atmospheres, and a general feeling of a lack of care make for an album that I have not seen myself returning to since I made my video on it, which was only my second time listening to it. Not to mention the fact that this thing is 8 tracks and 37 minutes. Imagine waiting 4 years and they promise this like return to like the Kid A sound, and it ends up being that brief and forgettable. Like, there's such a lack of confidence on display on this project. Basement Sessions are better. This thing lands itself in the C tier. Forgettable ass album. A Moon-Shaped Pool, the band's latest project, which was released almost a decade ago now. We've gone almost 10 years without any new Radiohead, and let's be honest, that shit ain't happening for ages. This album is the biggest step up from The King of Limbs imaginable. They go from this very oddball, bare-bones, skeletal, forgettable-ass release to this. A grand acoustic orchestral masterpiece that sees the band go into that In Rainbows feeling of digging out the deepest pits of your soul and bearing everything on display. From the very whimsical, wispy strings of Burn the Witch to the absolutely devastating ballad of True Love Waits, this album does not pull any punches. Don't let the very stripped back nature of this album fool you. It's actually very varied in its sound. It goes again from interesting string pieces to ballads to folk rock tracks to full-on krautrock songs like on Full Stop, which funnily enough was a leftover from The King of Limbs redone for this album. In fact, that's what a lot of this album is. Most of these songs are leftover tracks from previous projects that never made it or never got finished, that the band are finally pulling together to create this, I guess, trip down memory lane, this big opus for them. The biggest example of which is the closer True Love Waits, which took 20 years to be released. First recorded as like an acoustic guitar-led love song back in the Benz era, which then got turned into like a song along with Like Spinning Plates, which was meant to be this very like glitchy, skeletal electronic track. And then I think it was redone for In Rainbows again before being shelved another 10 years and being turned into what is easily the band's saddest moment. A lot of the band's saddest moments land on this album, to be honest. A song like Deck's Dark, which is about this big, overwhelming feeling being represented by a spaceship coming in and playing a deafening sound that is completely crippling you and your life. I guess it could be a metaphor for depression. The final moments of Full Stop see Tom York begging to be taken back by this very important figure in his life, only for them to seemingly disappear as the end of this track kind of fades out and dissipates. Or even a song like Present Tense, which have very detailed descriptions of his world falling apart around him, but him wanting to just dance with this person one last time so that he can be freed from all of this torment. Such devastating imagery across this entire project that really does create this sinking feeling in my heart every time I listen. Now, I will say the album is brought down the tiniest little bit by The Numbers and Tinker Tailor. Both of those songs I feel like are great, incredible tracks, but not quite on the same 10 out of 10 level as literally every single other song on this album. The Numbers just feels a little bit out of place in terms of its lyrics, and Tinker Tailor is a track that I feel is maybe a little too bare bones, could have been fleshed out a little bit more, but honestly, they don't bring down the album at all, and definitely are never skips for me, so I can't complain too much. A Moon-Shaped Pool lands itself up with the greats in the S tier. An album that would be a 10 if it weren't for Tinker Tailor being on it. Genuinely a damn near perfect project. Well, now that we have gotten the tier list out of the way, let's rank all of the albums within their tiers. Of course, last place we have Pablo Honey. Number 8 we have The King of Limbs. Number 7, I'm actually going to go Amnesiac below Hail to the Thief, with Hail to the Thief landing at number 6. Number 5 we have The Bends. Number 4 we're going to Moon-Shaped Pool. Number 3 I will go Kid A. Number 2 In Rainbows, and then number 1 of course OK Computer, my favorite album of all time. And yeah, thank you all so much for watching this video. Firstly, again, massive thank you for 3K. I seriously find it insane that so many people want to sit here and talk music with me. It means an endless amount to me. All of your guys' support, I seriously cannot thank you enough. And of course, let me know how you'd rank all of these albums down below. Like and sub if you haven't. We are on our way to 4K now. Links in the description to my Discord, my album of the year, my Twitter, and my other channels. Check those out if you haven't. Check out my reactions to every single Radiohead album, as well as the Smile album Wall of Ice from last year. They will be in a playlist at the end of the video here. And I will see you all whenever I next stream or upload. Bye bye.